I am still making it through the Black Dahlia Murders discography, and it's taking me a long fucking time. So just so you guys don't go without my content, I'm going to give you a bonus ranking. Let's go through Metallica's discography. I'm hella surprised I haven't done them yet, but yeah, there might be some hot takes here. And I'm going to breeze through this one real quick. Which one's the best? It doesn't appear that my green screen really likes my van that much. Was it any surprise that Lulu was going to be here? Even after looking into the backstory of this album, understanding the play that it's all based off of, the combination of Lou Reed's, age coming up to him, and he's singing really just not that being good, and Metallica is a very odd combination indeed. And it just doesn't work. Despite the memes about the table, I actually quite like the song The View. But other than that, you can very happily skip this album and you're not missing much. It's unique for all the wrong reasons. St. Anger is the OG bad metal album. You all know why this isn't a favourite album, and you've heard it all before, and I'm going to tell you again. I totally get the concept and the context behind this album. The band was in a real shitty place during this time, and that anger and everything, it is conveyed through this album. But the lyrics are just arse. Many of the songs get very boring, they have no depth, no movement to them. And even though I love a pingy twang snare, this is not the album where I want to hear it. Also a complete lack of soloing, this shouldn't even be considered a thrash album. All that being said, I do occasionally jam the title track, Purify, All Within My Hands, and Frantic as well. There's some decent tracks. Load is mainly a butt rock, just filler album. One thing I haven't mentioned is that Metallica have an issue with length. Most of their albums are way too long, and their songs don't ever seem to end. If you take all their filler tracks, put them together, you'll get Load. There are still some definitely groovy tracks to be had on here that still sound great despite the obvious change in sound from thrash metal to southern dad rock. Ain't My Bitch is great, and King Nothing is, I think, one of their best songs. I love that track. But most of this album is just filler and can get very boring at times. The same applies to Reload, really. Except this album's a bit higher up because I think there are more and better hits on this record. Fuel, The Memory Remains, Sliver. The Unforgiven 2 as well is a decent track. In fact, The Memory Remains is one of my favourite Metallica songs. I'm always hoping for them to play that live, because that song works amazingly in a live setting. But yeah, not much else to say on this one. It's still lots of filler, and you can really feel the length of it. Hardwired to Self-Destruct is a very safe album. And while that comes at both its detriment and its probably best quality. The songs are heavy, the thrash is definitely back. The soloing's pretty good as far as Kurt goes. Production's really crunchy and nice. There's just no real gimmicks to this album. And whilst I appreciate that, they just want to hit you with some thrash metal, it doesn't leave it as the most memorable record either. And Justice for All being here is my nuclear hot take. I defend a lot of albums in my rankings that are great albums despite a bad production. This one unfortunately gets the short end of the straw for me because I can't fucking stand the production on it. It's a well-known fact that the bass was turned down for malicious reasons. And every song on here sounds so dry. I don't feel like any of the riffs have any power behind them whatsoever, despite a lot of the riffs being really fucking good. This is still considered a classic album, and I respect that. There are lots of classic amazing songs on here, but if I ever want to listen to this album, I normally listen to one of the fan-made YouTube remasters. But for the ranking, I have to take in the album that they officially released, and I think it sounds so like arse. Sounds like a fucking demo. Yeah, I know it's a hot take, so come for me, I don't care. I was very surprised to see this record's actually pretty good. The band are definitely showing their age when it comes to their songwriting. The songwriting can get very basic with lots of repetition of riffs within each song, but the songs themselves, against each other, can get very varied. And there's a lot of callbacks to all their older albums within these songs. There are references to the dad rock days, the thrash metal early days. And honestly, if Metallica just quit here, I think this would be a decent finale. I particularly love the song Crown of Barbed Wire and Room of Mirrors. They're absolutely great tracks. Why does everyone hate this album? No, seriously, when I look online, everyone's oh, Death Magnetic kind of sucks, right? For the most part, I think this album's absolutely very solid, very good from top to bottom. That Was Just Your Life, The End of the Line, All Nightmare Long, Unforgiven 3. These are all great tracks. I think the production's pretty great as well. I just think the songs in here are a bit more memorable than Hardwired. This is also my girlfriend's favourite album. She loves this album. We're finally there with the hard hitters. Kill 'Em All is an absolutely classic thrash album. The songwriting is a bit primitive for today's standards, but it doesn't stop it just being a balls to the wall, riff. Production's great for the time. Songs are super catchy, super memorable, still always played live. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. It's just a fantastic old school thrash album. Just like Sepultura's Morbid Visions going into schizophrenia, this is like just an upgraded version, I think, of the debut. Fight Fire with Fire is like one of the fastest thrash songs I've ever heard. That initial riff at the beginning is just insane. And this album works really well as a package too, like where each song flows really well into each other. With infamously Escape being the only song that's just a bit meh. But almost every other song is a fucking classic. This swaps places with the number one, to be honest. I think a lot of people will consider this to be one of the greatest metal albums of all time. I don't know if I quite agree with that, but I will agree that it is one of the most legendary metal albums of all time. Even though it sits at a 54-minute runtime, this still has every single song being banger after banger after banger. It doesn't feel like there's any filler at all. Every single song is just fantastic. Production super sharp, like the songs progress over time, and it feels like this is one of the only albums that really earns its length. Yeah, surprise, surprise, Master of Puppets is number one.